For over 1,000 years, Western civilization has been stuck in a dark age of sexual repression and misinformation. We get an oversexed overload from the media, but nothing in the way of honest, helpful, practical information on sex and how to do it right. That sucks, and I'm fucking sick of it. My name's JV Altheras, and I've spent a couple decades learning everything I can about how to have amazing sex and more of it. Not in a classroom like a lot of people who talk about sex. I learned it all in the gutter, right where Mom told me I'd end up. It's my mission to bring an end to the sexual dark age with brutally honest talk and education on all aspects of sex and sexuality, in an atmosphere that will keep you entertained without treating you like an idiot. Shara and I are not doctors. Certifiable, perhaps, but not certified in any way. And that means we don't have to talk about vaginas and penises to maintain academic credibility. You got a problem with a vagina? Call a gynecologist. You want to learn more about pussies and cocks and how to make them happy? You've come to the right place. Quick producer's note. You are about to hear me introduce this episode as episode 63, when in fact the last one we released was 63. This one was recorded a little while back, and I thought, due to technical issues, was lost, but since I was able to recover it, I am publishing it now as episode 64. Enjoy. Welcome to episode 63.
Welcome.
Shara and I both had some extended nap time today, so
boy,
it might
did
take
we.
us a moment to wake up.
Well, we better be able to by now. It's kind of going into evening now.
Well, yeah, get up. Yeah, get up early in the morning, have sex, go back to sleep. Get up, have some lunch, go back to sleep. It's been a pretty relaxing Sunday all in all so far.
We've needed it, though, so it's okay.
Yes, we definitely have. So, interesting stuff going on in general. I don't think we've done a show since we got confirmed for Swing Set Takes Desire this November, which will be awesome.
It'll be a great time. Can't wait.
And we have decided to splurge on the Passion Suite with the in-room big old jacuzzi and free 24-hour room service and all the other awesomeness, so...
Well, I think if you're going to go, you might as well go all the way.
Yeah, and this is going to be my first official sit on my ass on a beach vacation in my entire life, so I'm really quite looking forward to it.
I can't wait to see you just sitting on your ass.
Yes, the throngs of sexy naked people should certainly help with the relaxation factor.
I think it'll be a very good place to begin.
Yes.
And end.
And since throng and thong are both such friendly words, hopefully we'll have a little... Well, actually, no, we shouldn't. Being that most of the place is clothing optional, there should not be a whole lot of thongs. But, as I often do, I digress. What we're going to talk about today is a question that came in from Ben on Facebook. He says, and this is kind of a long one, but there's a little bit of detail here. He says, I've been seeing a girl for about 7 months now who I met after a move halfway across the country to give myself a fresh start. She had just moved into town after leaving for some time and was staying with a supportive ex while she looked for work. Because we hit it off so well, I invited her to stay with me in my big empty apartment while she got things straightened out, a favor I was lucky enough to receive a time or two and was happy to pay forward. Fast forward to today, and she hasn't left, and I never asked her to, and we both ended up finding a relationship that was emotionally and mentally fulfilling, as well as just all-around fun. The problem with this otherwise supremely awesome course of events is that the physical side of the relationship never took off and essentially doesn't exist. She was very upfront when we got together that she has had a rough history with men, is gender fluid, and has multiple occurrences of abuse, which has almost entirely put her off of sex and anything that falls under that umbrella. It's taken me 7 months to kiss this girl without her flinching. I was once a fat, nerdy guy with no confidence or social graces and spent a good number of years with the help of a coach trying to work myself out of the mindset, and had finally started to be the person I want to be and the person other people want to be with. Through these months, I've tried again and again to ask her what I can do to get her excited about the prospects of some fun, but the answers seem to change by the day if she offers any at all. Most times I broach the subject and I'm met with an angry look and she shuts herself down. My coach for the last few years is a dom and a full poly gent in his early 40s and one of my closest friends. Once he heard about the situation, he did what good friends do and jumped out a plane and flew halfway across the country to say hello and get some drinks. Throughout this weekend, he spent a decent amount of time talking to my girlfriend about what's going on and finally got to the root, or so he thought, that she is a submissive and isn't comfortable relaying that. Once she and I discussed this, she explained that she was, but that it was a small component to the bigger picture. She had in the past brought up non-monogamy as an option to increase her sex drive, but every time I ask her what she is looking for, I get different answers. Some days she's suggesting it for my benefit, some days it's because she would like to see women, some days she just gets angry. I'm starting to be at a loss with this, and it's putting me in a position I'm not entirely comfortable with. Her inability to communicate with me, the excuse of not being able to find the words right now for months on end, and the ongoing trend of talking and nothing changing is leaving me feeling used. Since I grew up in New England in what could probably be described as one of the sexual dark age hotspots, I am comfortable in owning up to my own inexperiences and prejudices. However, I have said and followed up on time and time again that I am open to discussing and trying whatever it is that will make her happy, as long as it won't do me mental or emotional harm. With the news that she is a submissive, I found your podcast and decided that if that's what she needs, it's a set of qualities I can try to embody. However, anytime I try to initiate anything, I'm met with a stone wall. And as soon as I try to assert myself as a dominant force, she just gets angry. I'm starting to lose patience with the whole cycle, and it destroys me, as this girl is the closest I've ever been to another human being, and I truly want to find a way to make this work. I'm sorry if this was the wrong way to post this, or if it's just a jumbled mess. Let's see. Either way, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to put out this incredible podcast. I've learned a great deal about myself, and it's opened my eyes to a world of possibilities I'd like to explore. So, obviously, this is a complicated issue.
Wow.
Yes. Do you have any thoughts off the bat, Shara?
Well,
Off the bat.
I think that there's a couple things here. One, when you're devoting a lot of time into a relationship and you keep hitting a stone wall, brick wall, you have to really figure out how far you want to go with it and how much time you want to give to it. The fact that this is the most he's been dealing with in a relationship, the closest he's been, is probably very difficult for him, because it sounds like there's a part of him that's wants to be helpful, but at the same time he's being torn into another direction because he wants something and it's not going anywhere. So I think for him, as far as for himself, he needs to set some boundaries and limits of what he's willing to accept before, it's time for her to move out and move on, type of a thing. I think it would be too difficult for him to let her remain staying there if she doesn't start moving in one direction with him. So I think, number one, she needs to be in therapy, because it would help her. Obviously, she has some things going back to her childhood days that she's still dealing with. And I think it's just too much for somebody who does not have any background in psychology and social work to help with that. So
right. On that point, I want to expound on that for just a second. I absolutely agree with you. We have this sexual dark age attitude in our culture that when you have had situations of abuse or extremely bad sexual experiences, somehow it's not a big deal to just go through life with a broken sex drive.
Right.
And there are even therapists who will treat sexual abuse survivors and consider the therapy to be successful, even though those people have serious sexual issues that remain.
Right.
So obviously, without having a tremendous amount of detail, we can't really speak to that in this particular situation. But I feel comfortable saying that, if this girl has got enough bad experiences in her past that she is essentially sexually crippled and cannot have a physical relationship, then she needs to be in therapy for that, as that is not something that even the most well-intentioned person in a relationship is going to necessarily be able to get her to navigate through. Partially because the level of brutal honesty in the conversation involved, a therapist can normally, or in many cases, get to the root of issues that an untrained person cannot, or that a person without explicit confidentiality cannot.
Correct. And it sounds to me like he admits that he doesn't have a whole lot of experience in many different directions. Now, while she's going through therapy, I mean, that's what I would hope for in this situation. There's nothing wrong with getting some books and sitting down and reading together and going over it to see likes and dislikes, but not to push too hard, but just to do together.
Right.
And see where that leads. Sometimes, that can lead to a positive relationship, even if it doesn't end up in the long run being sexual. It might get them to a place where they're able to figure out what's going on with her, with some help with some therapy, and allow them to have a closer relationship. So there's all kinds of, books that would be very helpful for their relationship. And perhaps the therapist could suggest some for them to begin with.
Right, and a willingness to participate in the therapy is important. However, that's all. I mean, whether or not that actually happens is going to come down to the therapist and the way they work, and the exact situation. So, I mean, even with a willingness and an offer to participate in the therapy, he may not be invited into the therapy, and that's just there's a lot of variables involved there.
Right.
No conclusion should be drawn from not being invited in, but a willingness to participate is important.
But just hearing the situation, it sounds to me as though there are some major issues that she's dealing with that are probably related to abuse of some sort. Just the underlying, and it's hard to say without being there.
Well, and he in what he wrote, he says that she has had some very bad experiences. We're speculating that involves some kind of abuse, because usually bad experiences that cause people to freeze up sexually involve some sort of abuse. So that's
Right.
an assumption on our part, but it's a reasonable assumption.
Something close to that, if it isn't actual abuse, something very close to that sounds like is going on. And the difficult part for him is he wants to be helpful, but yet, he wants something in his life as well. So being a friend, being helpful, all great. Whether or not it's going to turn anything into this relationship could be a long way away. And some people are willing to wait for that. That depends on your age and your goals. But if he doesn't start seeing some changes or working towards something that will be helpful, then I think it looks as though he would have to sever those ties, because you can only do so much if somebody isn't willing to help themselves.
And that's one of the things about this that's probably the most concerning, is that from the way he describes the situation, it seems like he's 7 months in with zero progress and zero hope of any progress, and that is a big red flag.
Which is why I say she needs therapy, because you could go on and on for another 2 years and get absolutely nowhere, because the underlying problem is not being dealt with.
Right. Well, and not for nothing, there is also the possibility that he's being strung along, that he's the sexless innkeeper.
Right.
That he's getting strung along because he's providing a place to stay. And I don't like to assume the worst of people, and don't believe I'm doing that here, but it's something that needs to be mentioned.
Yeah.
She's not even willing to discuss it with him, or, as he says, every time he tries to bring up the topic, he gets a different answer.
And it could be that, like I said, too difficult for her to deal with. But on the other hand, he should not keep on going down this path. Be a friend, okay. Helpful, okay. That might mean that she has to move out so that he can now move into a different direction for himself. And I'm not sure what the answer is without, like I said, there's a lot going on in here. But in my life, my beliefs are that if you have to live this every single day, being helpful is great, but if you have to live this every single day, it's not a healthy life for yourself.
Right.
So.
Well, and he's going to have to decide for himself.
It sounds like he's
how
there.
much more energy he's willing to put into the situation before he's going to need to demand a change. Because this is definitely something where, especially without a whole lot of experience in relationships, it sounds like this is the first girl he's really into. But he also does not, in all that he wrote, he did not use the word love. He did not say he's in love with her. So,
right.
I would expect that if that was the case, that would have come out.
Well,
he may be being guarded and a little protective of himself, which is appropriate.
Mm-hmm. And my feelings are, I'm not sure what his age is. Did he say?
No, he does not say.
Because the fact is, it depends on how long you want to continue this for yourself and not move forward. So many people have goals in life, and they're willing to wait a certain time frame while things move into a right direction. This does not sound like it's moving into any right direction for him. And like I said, I'm happy in the fact that he's bringing this out to somebody, bringing it out, he's looking at it and trying to deal with it. I'm going to just do that little push and tell him, go for it. Go and make sure she gets into therapy. And if she's not willing to go into therapy, then you need to say, okay, well, this isn't working because...
Yeah, that's kind of your answer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if she... And that's the thing. A status quo is a powerful thing.
Mm-hmm.
So he's 7 months into being the sexless innkeeper. And
right.
if anyone is not familiar with that reference, that is a How I Met Your Mother sitcom reference. But you could probably find that episode online. But basically, it's a pseudo-romantic situation where you are providing some place to stay without actually getting any sex out of it.
Right.
And that makes it difficult too, because if they get along very well, the day is going to come, and I will not speculate. It has to be entirely up to him when that day comes. But the day is going to come when he's going to have to say, look, this is not working for me. I need more than what I'm getting here. And it can be tough, because especially when you're dealing with someone who has a difficult history with relationships or with sex. You want to be patient and be generous, and it sounds like he's already doing that, and that's good. Those are good instincts, but you also have to protect yourself, and you also have to be a little selfish. So
correct. You could put yourself into a situation where you're not getting anything, and that's okay. But at the other hand, if this is screaming, I want more, and don't know what to do, and if that's the case, I think she needs therapy, because there's something that she is just not dealing with. And if she's not willing to do that, then I don't think he should invest too much more time, personally, because somebody has to be willing to try to help themselves. And if she's not, then he's going to be in the same situation for a very long time and become miserable and unhappy. And I'm telling you that only because I've been there. I've been in a relationship where I wasn't being fulfilled, and the person was a lot of fun, as I was, but I became very negative because of the situation. Getting out of that situation then takes a long time to change who you were back to where you're happy, because I became what I considered to be a very negative person, and it took a long time to get back to, oh wow, here I am. I'm that fun person again and can enjoy life. And this just to me is not enjoying life. And to me,
causing some flashbacks for you, is it?
Oh yeah, and it's hard because I've been there, and you have to really love that person to do what he's doing. There is a sense of he really cares about her. However, have to separate that right now for your own self-being is okay. I can get past this and move on. There's somebody out there great for him if it's not her. There's somebody out there that's great. This woman has a lot of issues going on, and who knows how long it's going to take. And the long wait is worth it in the end if you see that she's trying. But it doesn't sound like she's trying, because he keeps hitting that same wall.
Right. Well, and the changing story is worthy of note.
Mm-hmm.
And without actually being there, it's hard to say, but this is the kind of thing that you often see when someone is trying to tell whoever they're talking to whatever they want to hear.
Right.
And it could be because simply, she's nervous and, she's afraid of getting hurt. And, I'm sure she does put value on whatever situation they have, but at the same time, it needs to be fulfilling for everyone. And if she is looking for an asexual relationship, as some people are, in fact, there are even dating sites out there for people who are looking for asexual relationships for reasons reasons including people who have injuries that make them unable to have sex, or medical conditions that make them unable to have sex. And they are, they're looking for other people who are in similar situations. They want to have an emotional relationship without a sexual component. However, imposing a non-sexual romantic relationship on someone who is not going to be satisfied with that,
right,
is not a long-term healthy proposition.
Right. And that's what I think is most important, is for them both to get healthy and be in a healthy relationship, whether it's together or apart. But I do think that if they decide to do that, it needs to be where she's living somewhere else. They can still see each other, be friends, whatever. But in order for him to be able to move on and have another relationship with somebody else, if that's the direction they're going to go, having her there will be detriment. I think it'll be too much of a detriment to him to have her there.
I agree. And that's, trying to continue sharing a roof with an ex is, there are books and movies, and there's plenty of that out there in popular culture, and whether it's fantasy or reality, it's a kind of thing that is extremely difficult to make work. And
I just think he'll get pulled in too easily, and I'm not picking on the situation, but I think he'll get pulled in too easily because of the person that it sounds like he is. He's a very giving person, which is great. You can be giving when she's living somewhere else, Well,
right. And you also, with a situation like this, if it does go on for far too long, and he does end up long-term unhappy, that could damage him. It could influence his ability to form attachments and to try and have a healthy relationship. So, it's not like it's abuse, but it's dysfunctional in that there's a large portion of what he wants and needs from a relationship that he just absolutely is not getting, and it doesn't seem like they're moving in a direction to get that.
Right.
So, I mean, I would say therapy. It sounds to me like therapy needs to happen on some level for her.
I agree.
And I don't. The situation seems complicated enough that I don't think a layperson, such as himself or anyone else, is likely to see her through this successfully.
Correct. I think she needs some help, and I think the one thing that he'd be able to do is, talk to her, and if she's refusing to do that, that's when I'd say, well, then you know what, I can't have you living here. We have to put a timeline on this, because I have feelings for you. I want to move forward in some form of a relationship more than where we are at today. I'll respect your decision, but if you're not willing to get help, then I don't see this ever moving forward. And that he has to do for himself.
Yeah.
And
that doesn't, again, we're not suggesting that is today, but
right.
He needs to decide, how much more energy he's willing to put into it.
Because this is going to be a long-term situation. This is not something that's going to go away easily, or, she's going to need a good therapist, and this is not going to go away very easily. However, if you find out that she's not willing to deal with it, or doesn't start dealing with it by getting some help, then it's going to get to the point where he just can't. It's going to be too much for him. It's going to be,
and obviously he is really into her. So I mean, if it's slow progress, is still progress. I mean,
correct.
At least with slow progress, you have hope.
Yes, but if she's not willing to go into therapy, then I just think this is going to be way too much for him in the long run, and he'll be the one that ends up with nothing in the end. So hopefully she is willing to go. She recognizes that there's an issue. I'm hoping for that, and hoping that she'll get the help, because she's lucky to have somebody who cares for her that deeply, willing to put a lot set aside. And that can be enough in a relationship to get something moving in the right direction.
Yeah, and then a couple other things that I think are worthy of note here. Now, identifying a desire for kink, she may have submissive tendencies, which she has admitted to, but, as he put it, she said it's part of a much larger picture. I do not think that trying to push the dominance and submission aspect at this point is likely to be very helpful.
Right.
I think that is something that when you have a healthy sexual situation can be a great thing, and it can add to it, or sometimes it's something that's needed for a healthy sexual situation, but in the absence of the sexual component, I do not think that the DS is likely to bring anything positive.
Correct.
Do you agree with me on that?
I do.
Cool. I like it when you agree with me.
I do too.
All right. So is there anything else that you would like to say on this particular topic?
Just really, I hope he'll keep us informed as to what's going on, and how things are moving along. I'd like to hear back, and, a lot of people out there that write into us and ask for help will end up writing to us and letting us know how things go. And that's great for us, because then we know that, we're helping them and we're on the right track.
Yeah, certainly. And it is always good to know if we were helpful. And, certainly there have also been many times that we traded some emails with somebody when more information came to light or whatever. So,
right.
So in Ben's case, we would be happy, whether it's on the show or trading a few emails. We're always happy to continue the conversation a little bit.
Correct.
So I think we're just going to do a quick episode for today. So I think this is the only thing we had on deck to talk about, really.
Right. We do have some from our FetLife site that we need to go through.
Yes.
So if we can get those on board, and, I told people we'd be getting back with them in the near future. So I have them ready to discuss with you.
Yes, I'm going to make it your job to get us back on a regular schedule.
Okay. I'll do that.
And now one other thing that we are experimenting with, we've kind of talked about this a little bit, and we've had some good response so far. We're going to try to do some sex news related stuff, and it's kind of starting out as stuff that we're publishing on the podcast website and going through our Facebook and Twitter feeds, and it kind of started this thought process kind of started in a similar way that the show itself started. I was looking around for some place that was a good one-stop shop for sex-related news stories. You know, be it stuff about, the science of sex or the science of reproduction, new information regarding pregnancy and genetics or enjoying sex or new types of sex toys or whatever. And I just could not find anything that was worth a damn.
And you're pretty good at that Google.
Yeah, as a single source for sex-related news, I could not find anything. So I started thinking, well, we should become a single source for sex-related news. So do not be surprised as time goes on. We want to put together like a quickie sex news type broadcast that we're going to keep as a separate broadcast. And we have longtime listeners will know we have mentioned this before, but we are now getting around to it. So the next episode that comes out may be a quickie sex news show, or it may be another regular episode. And please do give us feedback as this stuff comes out, because we are, it is obviously, if it's something that's very successful, it may break off into a second show to keep it separate from this one, or it may just be, something that we mix in.
Right.
But we are open-minded and looking for feedback on that.
Open-minded is a good thing.
That's right. Anything else you want to say before we wrap it up here?
Oh, no, I just, had a really great weekend with you this weekend. And, we've been extremely busy again with the business, which is obviously a very good thing, but we're finding a decent balance, and it feels very good because the increase in the business is extreme. I mean, the most work I think we've ever had on our floor.
It definitely is. We are busier than we have ever been.
Yeah, so it's great. I'm very happy for that, and I'm very glad to see. Well, it can be very stressful. You seem to really have a good control on all of that, and adding this into the picture just, I think, is helpful.
Yeah, well, being able to afford a vacation in paradise is also helpful.
Yes, let's keep our eye on that goal. Let's keep our eye on that goal.
Yeah, so as always, please feel free to reach out to us on Facebook or Twitter, or sexualdarkage.com is our website. We always welcome comments and conversations and private messages, and through pretty much anywhere we can be found. The Ending the Sexual Dark Age podcast page on Facebook is a good place to reach us. I am at JVAltheros on Twitter. Shara is at JVS_Shara, which is complicated, and we should probably see about simplifying that so it's something easier to say on
Sounds
the air.
good to me.
But yes, please feel free to reach out with questions, comments, insults, tirades, and whatever else you might have to offer.
Sounds good.
And so, until next time, this is JV and Shara reminding you that sex is one of the greatest things in life, and there is always room for better.
Always.